Welcome back to the Next Generation Critic. Today's episode to get trashed is the first bottle show in the series where no one has gone before. An engineering expert tweaks the engines and they go on a joyride. The first point is lost. This is reused footage from the pilot that is actually the Hood, not the Fearless. This is foreshadowing. If they're not authorized to alter the engines, you know that's exactly what they're gonna do. Riker and Data both think the specs that Kaczynski sent them are foolish. But why did they wait this long to tell the captain of the ship? So minus 1 point. Minus 1 point for not asking the captains of the Ajax and the Fearless what they thought about Kaczynski and his assistant. The transporter chief gives the first eye. Here they come, and this is the first time we see Chief Argyle. Why does Kaczynski think he's the first officer? Argyle says eye number 2. Minus 1 point for the Traveler not making up a stage name for everyone to call him by. And we learn Kaczynski is really stuck on Kaczynski. Troy thinks the Traveler is just empty space, like the inside of Odie's head. Kaczynski is going to start his test in 15 minutes. How much you want to bet the extras fought over who got to ride the elevator? Is this because he knows everything, or just because he knows the Next Generation episodes are only 45 minutes long due to first run syndication, while the original shows were 52 minutes long? Really, he's just going to spend 15 minutes talking about how great he is while the opening credits continue to roll. Riker's so disgusted he can't even look at Kaczynski. His rank suggests he is a warrant officer, and minus 1 point for not wearing a comm badge. Is that a mistake, or is it because Kaczynski knows Riker's about ready to lock onto that comm badge and beam him out into space? I think his smugness is also known as reverse ass-kissing. It seems to be natural for Starfleet officers to pose like Peter Pan. And it turns out this is not an overhead microphone but part of the ship, so I can't take a point. Aww. We never really learn how the Traveler got that job, do we? We finally learn what a warp bubble looks like when the Enterprise is traveling at warp speed. Kaczynski rambles on about nature. Listen closely, this fantasy music is called the Traveler's Theme, and you'll hear it only a few more times in the first season.
It might work better this way.
And now Wesley messes with the warp field. He's singing, "Hey, cool, Wesley and I can travel the stars together." The next point is lost for Riker not bitch-slapping Kaczynski all the way across engineering. Kaczynski says it's space and time. He's forgetting about thought, isn't he? Kaczynski is now going to preach philosophy. Kaczynski is whiny and obnoxious.
Talk about me in the third person as if I'm not standing right here.
Wesley needs to start telling everybody his name is not Boy. Minus 1 point for a single set of doors on the turbolift. That's what she said. All he does is tap the sides of the console. They should realize he's not doing anything. And this time they don't have a warp flash, do they? The Traveler looks up to Wesley and says, "Hey Wesley, look what I can do." You never really see this room in the later shows, do you? This is a look of someone who has everything under control. No one is in this scene. Minus 1 point because it means they sped it up. Minus 1 point for passing warp pin. The Enterprise is not designed to go Z speeds. That warp core would have exploded. Minus 1 point for Data using a contraction. Minus 1 point since they didn't do a flight plan for this speed, and you know how dangerous that is.
Hyperspacing like dust and crops, boy. Without precise calculations, we'd fly right through a star or bounce too close to a supernova and that'd end your trip real quick, wouldn't it?
Minus 1 point for saying reverse engines. That'll get him killed real quick. All stop is what he should have said only. So they were nowhere near where they started. They are 3 galaxies away in M33. And minus 1 point here because it would actually take about 2,000 years to get home. This galaxy is Centaurus A, and that's what it looks like from Earth, not 3 galaxies away. So minus 1 point. Minus 1 point. More than 30 minutes have passed. Minus 1 point for the captain's log talking down to the audience like we forgot everything before the commercial break. Minus 1 point for Data not knowing how to count. 51 years, 10 months, 9 weeks, 16 days. Should be 52 years, 3 weeks, and 2 days. Picard's thinking, it was my error to let him come on the ship, isn't it? Kaczynski did some chilling with the vessel functions asymptomatically. He can really BS at technobabble, can't he? Picard's like, what the heck did he just say? What Riker's really saying is, I just want to kill him. The Traveler says he didn't mean to do it, and Wesley is on to his deep, dark secret. The Traveler says, you're not old enough to say things like that. Call me in about 6 years. But isn't dangerous nonsense why they explore space? Shout out to Stanley Camel. Or is it Kamel, who is perfect at being the most self-centered, egotistical narcissist? What's really scary is we work with people like this in the real world every single day. As you can see, Picard is thrilled. In reality, he has a hot date with his girlfriend on Starbase 15 and needs to go back real quick. Commander Riker is thinking, when he was a kid, I bet he probably got the shit beat out of him in school every day and never could figure out why. I wish we were back in school right now. Shout out to Captain Picard for asking for everyone's input. Troy says he's a pompous ass. Worf says he's full of it and is gonna get us into more trouble. Geordi says he's our only hope, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Data says, let's look around for a little bit before we go back. And Tasha's like, hey, you didn't ask me for my advice. Why is Picard calling Geordi number 1? Riker says, I number 3. -1 point. They should have collected more data on how they got there before doing it all over again. Riker says, I number 4. Worf, Tasha, and Deanna are all thinking, we're dead. Kaczynski just does not stop boasting about himself, does he? This is the first episode where nobody listens to Wesley. This is one of the reasons why they should have done a little bit more research on how they got there. Riker says, I number 5. Wesley is the only one that stands up to Kaczynski. Good for him. What happened to everyone in engineering? And Riker's saying, oh, I should have listened to him in the first place, shouldn't I? -1 point for no one being thrown all over the ship. -1 point for the ship not exploding at this speed. And -1 point for the ship not crashing through something. They're trying to create this scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Geordi puts the brakes on, and this time Data says they never went faster than warp 1.5. It is like, yeah, I get to say where no one has gone before, and then Deanna says, I wanted to say that line, not you. The Enterprise is now trapped in dryer sheets being chased by giant fuzzy dice. -1 point for the star dates. Even though they're trying to do these experiments quickly, there's no way they would do them every half hour. Worf sees his pet Klingon Targ. It was a family pet, and then they ate it. Aww. Now Data's cat appears, and Tasha's thinking, Kitty, you need to go back before the bridge crew finds out what I did with Data. Unfortunately, Denise Crosby left the show before we got to see how dark her backstory is. Then again, it was probably too dark for regular TV. Picard's fear of turbolifts comes real. The crew is now pursuing their dreams. This part of space is a lot like the Nexus. Picard isn't careful, they might not want to go back, except for these two who are being chased by a Klingon Targ. Picard now meets his grandmother, which invites the question, are they meeting lost spirits out here, or is she just a manifestation of his mind? In this case, she was in his mind. Aww. They are totally lost in space, and he's asking, why is there a red alert? This is one of the few times where the doctor didn't move the patient to sickbay. Picard gets on the intercom and tells everyone not to think. Picard called her an ensign, but she isn't wearing officer rank. In reality, she always did ballet in the empty bay when no one was looking. Try and say this 10 times fast.
It wasn't him, it never was. It was his assistant.
Kaczynski's rank moved and changed, so -1 point. Why does Picard think he is the one that did it? Riker confesses that he didn't listen to Wesley. Of course, the last time Wesley was engineering, he took over the ship and almost got them all killed. Since the Traveler sent them all the way out into left field, they decide to name him Y.
The left fielder's name. Why?
Wesley explains what he saw, but Riker saw it too. Why didn't Riker tell the captain? -1 point for yet another captain's log talking down to the audience. They honestly believe we forgot everything that happened before the commercials. Look closely. Was this abstract horse the same one that was in the conference room? Wesley finally tells everyone his name is not Boy. Saying the boy was already outdated in the 1980s. It's sad to think that 400 years in the future, the reference will come back. Picard and Crusher debate over pumping drugs into a dying patient. The Traveler sings his favorite Who song. My instinct is he's not actually from Tau Alpha C either. As you can see, Wesley already wants to travel with him. Riker tells Crusher he has certain abilities. Is he hitting on her? The Traveler admits Kaczynski is a fraud. Aww. The problem is the Traveler can't seem to control where they go. If he could, he would have a great career in Starfleet, like this guy, who accused Picard of being a threat to the ship. The Traveler talks about concepts still too advanced for the human race. Kaczynski still refuses to believe it. Obviously, he hasn't looked out a window in the past few hours. Picard's like, alright, if you think you're so great, you get us back. Of course, Kaczynski doesn't know how, so he covers himself by saying, we're explorers, let's explore. But Picard is thinking he still has that hot date at Starbase 15 at 6 o'clock and needs to go back home right now. The Traveler says, don't tell Wesley's mother that he's really smart. That's sexist, and needs to be encouraged to pursue his scientific dreams. But Picard says, you're talking about a teenager that took over engineering and almost got us all killed while he was drunk, and the Traveler responds, I saw that episode, but the only thing anyone remembers is Tasha and Data. Plus, in 7 years, Wesley is going to call you out for trying to relocate Indians. So the flame must be real enough because as you can see, this guy is soaked in sweat. And -1 point for this scene just being too corny. So this time, the thoughts of the crew are going to help out the Traveler. Strangely, they never pursued this type of travel since. Deanna and Tasha tell the captain the crew are going to be scared. So Picard tells them all to stay focused on the Traveler and think happy thoughts. This is really a corny speech, so -1 point. The Traveler asks Kaczynski to help him out so Kaczynski won't feel like a fool anymore. Picard says, think of him as someone you'd care deeply for. And Deanna says, wow, this feels great. That's because half the crew was ordered to their quarters, so decided to have sex with someone they care deeply for. -1 point since traveling this fast will destroy the ship. The Traveler is becoming one with the universe. Look closely, there are people in engineering, and now they are gone, so -1 more point. And the Traveler is gone now too. Kaczynski's relieved they're back, but he's thinking, I'm out of a job. And how come nobody turned into slugs? -1 point for ending up exactly where they started. Picard has to give another corny speech to his people. The phrase, have the boy, doesn't sound right at all, does it? Wait, is Wesley playing with that little machine again? -1 point for saying only commissioned officers on the bridge. 75% of the crew is enlisted and would man most of those positions on the bridge. Of course, after 400 years, Hollywood still can't figure out how the military works. -1 point for promoting Wesley to acting ensign. Starfleet would have a perfectly good junior ROTC program, and those cadet ranks would entitle him to bridge and engineering access, so he should have been enrolled into that. Plus, Paramount would have made a killing creating a JROTC program for young viewers, since these shows aired on first-run syndication at 7 instead of 8, which is why Wesley's on the ship. You need a kid on the show if it airs before 8. -1 point for not having a branch of Starfleet Academy on the Enterprise. The ship's got 1,000 people and they always need to take classes. -1 point for less than 3 hours passing for this sleigh ride. Riker says, I number 6. Riker asks if Dr. Crusher should be notified, but Wesley says, no, if you try to tell my mom where I am all day long, she will think you think that she doesn't know how to raise kids on her own, and that would be considered sexist, so I will tell her later. And the Enterprise flies off to Starbase 15 because Captain Picard's got a really hot date tonight. So, who traveled where no one has gone before? Victoria Dillard was the ballerina and unfortunately began to suffer from Parkinson's disease at the age of 38. Biff Yeager will be back one more time as Chief Argyle. Herta Ware has 50 screen credits including Cocoon, Golden Girls, and Alien Nation. Her daughter is Ellen Gear, which makes these two cousins. Eric Minyuk is a traveler and we will see him 2 more times. Stanley Kamel has 140 screen credits including Corvette Summer with Mark Hamill, Morgan Mindy, and of course Monk. But unfortunately a heart attack took him at an early age. Where no one has gone before gets a score of 66. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, that subscribe button, and I will see you again soon.